Jon Jones defends his heavyweight belt versus Stipe Miocic. Here's how I see this fight potentially playing out. Now, full disclosure, I'm a much bigger fan of Stipe's than I am of Jon's, just based on, let's say, Jon's extracurricular activities. But that said, I always do my best to give you as objective a breakdown as possible. So we'll start with Stipe. So what I like about Stipe is he's got terrific boxing skills. He boxes out of orthodox stance. He throws valid boxing combinations responsibly, meaning he does not overreach. He doesn't open himself up with that bow and arrow type motion where he pulls, where some people will throw a jab and pull their right hand back. That's what we call bow and arrow, leaving themselves open to a counter shot. Stipe throws nice, tight boxing combinations, which shows his boxing pedigree from actually competing as an amateur boxer. Stipe also has excellent wrestling skills. He can get his opponents down on the ground and knows how to stay heavy on top and then just wear them down. So in my opinion, Stipe has very balanced striking and grappling skills. Second thing I think that works in Stipe's favor is just his experience as a heavyweight. He's fought his entire MMA career as a heavyweight. He's defended the belt when he was champion multiple times against Hall of Fame fighters such as Cormier and Ngannou. So Stipe's body has just been conditioned to dealing with that type of resistance that another heavyweight male fighter can give him. However, I do have two concerns regarding Stipe. The first is the long layoff. So Stipe hasn't been in the cage since he was knocked out by Francis Ngannou. And he hasn't had sort of a quote-unquote comeback fight or an easy fight after that knockout loss. So inactivity is a factor. No matter what people say, oh, ring rust is a myth, this and that, but there's also sort of the mental rust, because simply by not being in the ring or the cage for an extended period of time, the moment you do step back into the ring or cage, there's a certain moment or moments of adaptation where you have to kind of snap back into it. So no matter how much hard sparring you've done, no matter the great conditioning you've been in, it's still a mental adaptation in the end to being in under the bright lights in an actual fight, facing somebody who's dishing out bad intentions at you. Now, the second part of this concern is the fact that Stipe was really badly knocked out by Francis in his last fight. So in the first round of that fight, Stipe ate a really hard right hand from Francis. He also ate a big head kick from Francis, and I think he really wasn't able to recuperate in that between rounds in that 1 minute break, and so then he did get finally stopped in the second round. And the thing is, when a fighter gets badly KO'd, it's kind of imperative that they get what we call a comeback fight, meaning an easy, in quotations, fight, just to let them get their wheels back under them, so to speak. And this is certainly not what you would call a fight with Jon Jones, potentially one of the greatest MMA fighters. I won't say of all time, but certainly a great MMA fighter. This is a big leap, to go from a long layoff and being badly KO'd to just stepping in there with one of the best. Now, having voiced those concerns, the one way around that I see is just Stipe and his team embracing those two facts, and saying, okay, well, understanding that we are not going to get an easy fight before we fight Jon Jones, this is how we need to prepare. And hopefully they did so. Hopefully they embraced, putting Stipe through some very tough sparring sessions just to get himself mentally prepared for what he's about to face tonight in the cage versus Jon Jones. The one aspect of a team Miocic that could have that work is the fact that really Stipe is the only fighter for that gym. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they work with a whole team of fighters like they do at American Top Team or the gym that Daniel Cormier's from. What is it, American Kickboxing or something? So, in other words, Team Miocic's attention should be pretty much 100% on Stipe. They can devote all their sort of game planning and their training camp planning to get behind him 100%. So hopefully that's exactly what happened. So I'm hoping we see a primed and ready, fully prepared Stipe who steps in there in the cage with Jon Jones tonight. Now, that said, Jon Jones is certainly no easy opponent to face. So let's start out with what I think works in Jon Jones's favor as a heavyweight. Well, number one, as one of our viewers points out, it's really hard to bet against Jon Jones because Jon Jones is Jon Jones, meaning he's super athletic. He's got terrific striking skills. He can fight righty or lefty. He's got great grappling skills from his wrestling background, and he's really improved his jiu-jitsu submission game over the years. Now, I think the thing that makes Jon Jones sort of the very exciting fighter to watch is that he's so dynamic. He never loses his poise. He's always poised, and he's able to pull off these sort of high-risk, high-reward moves like, say, a flying switch knee or a spinning back fist. And he makes it look seamless, and he makes it look very smooth. But it takes a lot of athleticism and sort of dynamic explosion to be able to do that. Now, the reason it looks so smooth is because Jon's able to be so relaxed while he's in there. He's never tensed up. The moment you tense up, all those kinds of sort of, I won't call them crazy moves, but maybe unconventional moves start to look really awkward. So perhaps Jon Jones's number one asset is his sheer athleticism. His second greatest asset, I think, is Jon's ability to remain calm and cool under any type of pressure. So, for example, in his fight with Dominic Reyes, Reyes certainly had his moments where he was able to land combinations on Jon, but Jon never lost his cool. He just stayed focused on doing what he had to do, which is one thing I really like about his game is he has that Joe Louis style footwork where he just takes small steps forward, and that's how he puts pressure on somebody. He doesn't go crazy. He doesn't exert a lot of energy. It's just a long, slow little march forward. And that Reyes Jon Jones fight was kind of the epitome of what Joe Louis used to say, which is you can run, but you can't hide. I'm coming after you, albeit with very small steps. Now, on a side note, some folks would argue that they thought maybe Reyes won that fight. I disagree because Jon was the one that was basically initiating the action the entire time. Sure, Dominic showed great takedown defense and et cetera, but you do not win the fight by displaying defense. What you get by having great defense is you live to see another exchange. So now, in a sense, Jon's greatest asset in this fight versus Stipe might be his ability to remain poised throughout the entire 5 minutes. But there are a few areas of concern for me. One is simply the fact that he's moved up to heavyweight and he shifted his body composition. Now, if you take a look at Jon, he certainly put on a lot of mass in his upper body. He's also carrying a little bit of extra body fat on his upper body, on his belly area. But my concern is it doesn't look like he really devoted a lot of time and energy to developing his legs. Now, I do know this is not a bodybuilding competition, so it doesn't matter what the physical appearance is per se, but in terms of being able to generate power, all fighters generate power from the ground up, so you have to have what we call that posterior chain, meaning from your feet all the way through your legs, through your hips, your back, and out your arms. And that chain is only going to be as strong as the weakest link. So even if Jon Jones devoted a lot of time and energy to developing terrific upper body strength, if his lower body is not as equally developed, then it's not going to translate. Now, the second aspect of having a bigger upper body mass without developing equally your lower body is your lower body has to carry around your upper body. So that brings into question the conditioning aspect, right? Now that Jon's carrying around a bigger mass, hopefully he's also spent enough time developing that cardiovascular system to be able to carry that greater mass. So again, even though this is not a bodybuilding competition in terms of body composition, I would say Stipe is ahead in that department simply because he's a little bit leaner. He's conditioned to carrying around that heavyweight body mass. That's been his entire career. Now, the second aspect of Jon Jones' game at heavyweight that is a question mark more than a concern is simply that we haven't seen him fight at heavyweight very much. I mean, his fight versus Cyril was so short that it's hard to gauge what Jon really has as a heavyweight. Is he able to put together enough volume of strikes to keep an opponent off of him? We saw him being successfully able to take Cyril down and then dominate on the ground, but will he be able to do so with Stipe? So in the end, although I'm probably going to be rooting for Stipe just for sentimental reasons, if I'm going to bet, I would more than likely bet money on Jon Jones to win, at least by decision. But how do you guys have this fight? Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Who do you guys have winning? How do you think they're going to win? Will it be decision? Will it be a KO? Will it be a submission? Let me know in the comments.